Your mama's favorite.
Welcome back. The topic of dealing with our depression and understanding it and finding ways to heal ourselves so that we can bring our life to a higher level of just excitement and enjoyment. We cannot omit the topic of the toxic mother, of toxic motherhood. This is obviously a very big topic. I think by this point a lot of people are already sick of hearing the name of Freud. As one of my favorite characters from one of my favorite soap operas of all time, The Golden Girls. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. So Sophia Petrillo, who is like Dorothy's mother on the show, she's like an 80-year-old lady. The question was that one of the girls on the show said something about going to a therapist, to a psychologist, right? And Sophia was like, I don't like psychologists. They always blame it on the mother. So it's true that 20th century psychoanalysis explains everything with the roots of our childhood, including chronic depression or borderline personality disorder, not to mention something like DID, dissociative identity disorder, which always results from childhood abuse. But in any case, the topic of toxic mothers is, I think, very close to a lot of people. And the big irony that makes me so mad is that there is a big stigma, especially in patriarchal societies. So the more patriarchal, the bigger the stigma against saying something bad about mothers. And also there is like a fetish almost, although a lot of people will criticize putting it in this way, but there is some kind of an idealization of motherly love. And again, the more patriarchal the society, the bigger this idealization of the mother is. There is a big denial in society about the reality of how things really happen in the world. And again, the purpose of this is not to blame anybody, but to see things as they are, because when we see things as they are, that's when we can really begin to deal with what's actually happening. Right? When we are denying things and hiding in lies, we can never find the root of the problem. We can never solve it. So what is the root of the problem here? Well, it is not to, obviously, nobody's denying that most mothers go through tremendous sacrifice and they really love their kids. Simply put, okay. But the picture is much deeper and bigger than this. First of all, there are many mothers who are outright abusive. You have mothers who are addicts. And this is not just like, oh, this is like one in a million. No, it's not one. So you have mothers who are addicts. You have mothers who are extremely emotionally detached and cold. You have mothers who leave their kids, run away from the family when the child is very young. You have mothers who commit suicide when the child is very young. And all these things obviously have a huge, tremendous effect on the child. And these are the strongest cases, but they're also in the large amount of cases, you have much more subtle and psychological trauma from the mother. So for example, even if the mother is doing her best and really, thinks that she really loves the child, unless she is completely enlightened and wise and completely at peace with herself and loves herself, she might herself be depressed. She might herself not love herself enough. She might have her own issues with her parents. She might have anger issues. she might have issues with her husband, and so on. And all these things, even if they're not very outward, the child can pick up on them. Not to mention there are a large variety of mothers, they love their children conditionally. And again, we have this idealization of motherly love as unconditional love. And I think there is a aspect of motherly love that is unconditional, but it's not all of it. You have a lot of mothers who love their children conditionally. For example, I have seen it in my own life. In many cases, you have mothers who, for example, tell their child, you have to do what I tell you, otherwise you're a bad child and your mommy is not gonna love you anymore. So you learn that you have to be obedient in order to be loved. You learn that you have to, for example, be a certain weight in order to be loved, because there are many mothers who tell a child, wow, you eat so much, you're such a pig, you need to lose weight. I have heard people tell me about this. There are mothers whose child, for example, is disabled, and I have also heard people who have told me that their mother, if they're disabled, tell them, wow, you're such a monster, and stuff like that. No matter what you say, you cannot claim that this is 100% unconditional love when the mother is constantly criticizing the child. And even in much lighter cases, I have seen it and heard it from so many mothers, how they see the negative in their kid, and obviously they're worried they want the best for their kid, but they're constantly seeing oh, he's so lazy, she's such, whatever. So they're saying all these negative things. I mean, how is that unconditional love, which would mean that you're trusting and you wouldn't be speaking in these negative terms to the child and about the child? Again, this is not to say that there is not an unconditional element of love in this. For example, I was once in my life in a very toxic relationship, very long-term, very toxic. We were not good for each other, on the one hand. We're very toxic to each other. On the other hand, there was definitely a lot of unconditional love in that relationship as well. So it's never black and white when people say this is toxic, full stop. This is unconditional love, full stop. We live in the world of humans. Complete white or complete black is extremely rare, if not impossible. Everything is a mixture. Not to mention that motherly love, first of all, it has a huge element of survival instinct, because that's what a mother is, someone who needs to protect the child until he or she is old enough to take care of themselves. So there's a survival instinct in this. There's also, this is my child, so there's like a possessiveness type of, also I identify, this child is a part of me, and therefore right? Many people say how their parents don't see them for who they are, right? Many parents don't accept their children for being gay, for being part of the LGBT community. I have experienced this too. If your parents are not accepting you for who you are, how can you feel 100% loved by them? Especially the mother. Let's focus on the mother here. The father is another beast. So this is not a conversation about is there unconditional love or not, to what percentage. It's not about percentages, but it's about to say that idealization of mother's love is very dangerous, because it portrays a romantic picture of the mother that is not true. Absolutely analogous to the way that movies and cinema and book portray romantic love, right? That's a totally different topic. Again, the portrayal of romantic love is very detached and very often devoid of reality. Why is this important? It is important also to understand the reasons for this. I believe that because we live in a patriarchal society on a global scale, and obviously the more east you go, generally the more patriarchal, although I'm in Eastern Europe, so in the middle between East and West, and I would say it's probably very patriarchal on the Balkans. And the thing is that before we blame mothers, we have to, for failing to love, we have to understand something, again, very dangerous behind this idealization of motherly love. In the patriarchal society, a woman is encouraged to only take her place as a mother. So she's a mother and a wife. So and a daughter. So she's nobody by herself. She's always in relation to the man. And she is encouraged to know less, to be less intelligent than the man, and to completely commit herself to bringing up her children and so on. This is so pervasive that we can speak here about 10 hours, but just very two short anecdotes. How once my yoga teacher many years ago, because I'm female, and she told me that the only way for me to become like a full individual, like a realized individual, is to give birth to a child. And I was like,
what?
And then she was, I think, just as shocked by my reaction than I was by the ridiculous stuff that she was saying. Like, I'm gonna be realized when I give birth to a child? Like, that's the only way? Like, I'm like some kind of a animal, like a female animal, and that's it? It's like ridiculous. But anyways, because I'm gonna get very angry if I start talking about this. And the second thing is, when I came out to my mother that I'm romantically interested in women, again, because I am biologically female, even though I identify as non-binary transgender masculine person. And my mother said, you are gay because you don't want to take the responsibility of having a child.
What?
So everything is, if you're a woman, everything, or a female body in my case, everything is about having a child. Everything, all your decisions, everything rotates around having a child. Why is now comes the tricky part. These women being forced to be just mothers, the ability for them to assert themselves as individuals and to know themselves as individuals is taken away. These women, they don't know themselves outside of being mothers. Therefore, the big fear comes in when the child starts growing up, that the mother, it's unconscious. So the mother gets really attached to the children. She cannot let go of them. Because her identity is so tied to her role as a mother. And what is a mother? Mother is somebody who takes care of somebody else. She needs to be needed in order to exist. The moment an individual is independent, he or she doesn't need a mother anymore. They can have friends and they can have their parents as friends, but they don't need a mother because they're not babies anymore. And so many mothers unconsciously try to keep their children dependent on them. And again, the more patriarchal the society, the more you can see this. They pamper their children until they're 40. They do their laundry, especially for boys. They do the laundry of a 40-year-old man. They do their cooking, whatever. They constantly calling them, how are you? Have you eaten? I mean, the guy's 40. You asking him if he's eaten? Like, it's ridiculous. And they're like disapproving very often of for example, if it's a guy, the guy's girlfriend, if he's a heterosexual man, but also the daughters, like, and and the mother tries to control the children. And again, not because she's an evil individual, but because she had been deprived of her identity as a person who needs to find their own path because of the patriarchal society. So she doesn't have anything else besides the kids. Because if she had her own projects and things, and she's walking her own path where she's discovering who she is and working, she's not gonna have so much time to control her kids. And I think this is the big tragedy. And I think this is where the love gets distorted, because even if the woman wants to love her husband, children, whatever, if she has all these issues, if she has all these repressed energies, all this anger, that's gonna show in one way or another. She may get depressed, or she may lash out angrily. In any case, the kid will feel it, whether it's internalized or whether it's obvious. In any case, we all love our mothers, or most of us, and we're grateful for them. But we cannot, once we are adults, we cannot let them into our safe space, into our independent world that we're creating for ourselves, and have the mother still have control, because if she does, then this prevents us from really growing up. We are still stuck in the child's age. And this is very relevant for people who are depressed, and especially for people who show masochistic and dependent tendencies, because these people very often grew up trying to appease the mother, trying to make her happy, trying to gain her love, to prove themselves to her. I remember always trying to prove something to my mother, and then this transfer on to trying to prove something to women that I date. Why? Because I felt that was the only way to gain unconditional love, which I didn't feel. So, and this obviously leads to lower self-esteem and so on. So for masochistic, dependent, depressive types, the mother is very important, and everybody who suffers depression, even things again like borderline personality disorder, eating disorders, especially anorexia, is often linked to psychologically to a dominating mother. You should really consider the role of the mother in your life, and if in some way you have allowed the mother to have too much control, and that you have felt too responsible for her and feeling her like a burden, that you have to take care of her, and that she's too hung up on you and constantly calling you and telling you that without you, that she needs you in her life, and so she's dependent on you. If you feel that that may be the case for you, you're going to have to really, it's a struggle, but you're going to have to find a way to detach yourself from that, because even though you love this person, this individual, it's not the right way. It's like you're in a toxic romantic relationship. Like, you cannot make a clear divide between parental relationships and romantic, because they're always like, the dynamics are the same. Even they're talking these days about the mother in a way psychologically or emotionally raping the child. These are very strong words, but I'm glad they're starting to exist, because this needs to be addressed, as well as other taboo topics such as incest and actual physical abuse, which you would usually come from the father in this case, and from the mother would come the more invisible psychological domination and so on. Next time I will talk about this movie that came out about toxic motherhood. I'm seeing movies like this for the first time. In any case, think about this. I will leave you with this thought, and I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.